Commander Zelth stood on the bridge of the Zarvok's Pride, his claws gripping the cold metal rail as the stars streaked past the viewport. His heart pounded in a way he had never felt before. On the main console, the sensors blinked frantically. A human warship, enormous, dark, and terrifyingly fast, was approaching Dravian space. The alerts flashed red. Incoming warship. Human total destruction likely. Zelth's mandibles twitched with unease. Humans. A species so small, so fragile in legend, yet feared across the galaxy for their unpredictability. Centuries ago, the Dravian Empire had dismissed their potential. But every encounter, every story whispered a warning. Humans were not ordinary. They did not play by the rules. They were relentless, Commander. Sensors confirm it, stammered Lieutenant Ryle, his voice tight with panic. The human warship is enormous. Its weapon arrays, they're unlike anything we've seen. Zelth's eyes narrowed. Prepare all defenses. Evacuate the civilian colonies. Alert every fleet in the sector. This is not a drill. Humanity is coming. His voice was steady, but inside, dread clawed at him. Across the bridge, officers scurried. Dravian ships activated shields. Emergency lights flashed, and comm channels buzzed with frantic warnings. The civilians on nearby planets would have mere hours to flee. Zelth swallowed. He had faced many enemies before, but something about humans was different. They carried a kind of quiet certainty, a cold inevitability that made even the bravest Dravian pause. Outside the viewport, the stars stretched into streaks as the warship drew closer. It was triangular with engines glowing blue, its black hull reflecting distant starlight like liquid shadow. And yet it moved with purpose, slow but unstoppable, as if the universe itself yielded to its will. "Sir, it's beautiful," whispered Lieutenant Reel, almost in awe. Zelth shot him a look, sharp and warning. "Focus, Lieutenant. Beauty does not forgive mistakes. Humanity never forgives weakness." Alarm klaxons suddenly blared, drowning out all other sounds. The human vessel had entered firing range. Its massive silhouette filled the viewports, casting a shadow over the planet below. The bridge crew froze, staring in disbelief. Humanity did not just approach. They dominated the very space around them. Zelth felt a strange mix of fear and admiration. The human ship radiated confidence. It didn't need to fire its weapons to intimidate. Its mere presence was enough. He had spent decades studying enemy tactics, anticipating movements, predicting strategy. But humans, they were different, unpredictable, fearless. He moved to the comm panel, his claws tapping nervously. "All sectors, repeat. Evacuate civilians. Prepare defense grids. Humanity is arriving." Outside, the warship slowed, hovering over the edge of the Dravian system. A voice, calm and almost melodic, echoed through comm channels. It was human. One voice, clear and commanding. "Dravian forces, prepare for engagement. We come to accomplish what must be done." Zelth's chest tightened. That voice carried authority, precision, and something more, an unspoken promise of absolute power. It was not just a threat. It was a statement: we are inevitable. He looked at his officers, fear and doubt etched on every face. For the first time, Zelth felt the crushing weight of hopelessness. He knew that in the coming hours, the Dravian Empire would see the full might of humanity. They would learn, as every other civilization had learned, that humans fought differently. They fought with heart, with courage, and with a stubborn refusal to yield. "Brace yourselves," Zelth whispered, more to himself than anyone else. "The humans are coming, and with them, total destruction." The warship loomed closer, silent, unstoppable, and beautiful in its deadly perfection. The bridge of the Zarvok's Pride held its breath. In the cold black of space, the galaxy waited and trembled before the unstoppable force that was humanity. The silence of space shattered as the human warship unleashed its first salvo. Energy beams cut through Dravian defense lines like lightning through the night sky. Frigates and cruisers disintegrated almost instantly, leaving trails of glowing debris that drifted aimlessly in the void. The bridge of the Zarvok's Pride erupted into chaos. "Commander, shields are failing. We can't hold them," Lieutenant Rill shouted, his voice trembling. Zelth gritted his teeth, forcing himself to stay calm. "Hold your positions! Focus fire on their engines!" he barked, though he knew deep inside that strategy alone would not save them. The human vessel moved with terrifying precision, dodging attacks and striking at the heart of Dravian ships without hesitation. Outside, the warship glided like a predator. Its triangular hull reflected the dying light of nearby stars, and its engines left trails of blue energy that burned like fire against the blackness of space. Each beam of its weapon struck a Dravian ship with surgical accuracy, disabling weapons and shields while leaving the crew alive, but terrified. "Commander." Riel's voice dropped to a whisper. How are they doing this?" "They are humans," Zelth said grimly. "And humans. Do not fight like anyone else." The human warship paused briefly, hovering just beyond the range of Dravian weapons. Then a calm, clear voice echoed through the comms. "Dravian forces, surrender immediately. We aim to avoid unnecessary civilian casualties. Resistance will lead to total destruction." Zelth froze. "The humans?" They were offering mercy. In the middle of chaos, in the middle of war, they gave him a choice. It was almost unimaginable. He had never seen an enemy act with such calculated restraint. "Prepare countermeasures," Zelth shouted, masking the awe in his voice. "Do not be fooled by their words. They are dangerous, beyond anything we have faced." Still, as the human warship fired again, Zelth noticed something he hadn't expected. The strikes were precise. They avoided populated areas. They targeted weapons, engines, and command centers. No random destruction. No unnecessary killing. It was as if the humans had a code, a principle guiding their power. The Dravian fleet was crumbling, yet Zelth felt a strange mixture of fear and admiration. These humans, so small and fragile in appearance, were proving unstoppable, not just because of firepower, but because of their intelligence, courage, and discipline. "Sir, they're perfect," Riel muttered, staring at the viewport. Zelth shook his head. "No, perfect would destroy everything. Humans are something different. Something we cannot fully understand." Alarm klaxons rang again as the human warship unleashed another concentrated volley. The flagship of the Dravian fleet shuddered under the impact. Crew members were thrown from consoles. Sparks flew from broken panels and the hull groaned under the pressure. Zelth gritted his teeth and braced himself. "Commander," an officer screamed. "We're losing formation. The humans, they're unstoppable." "They are human," Zelth muttered under his breath. "They don't just destroy, they calculate. They fight with heart, and they never give up." The warship hovered near the Dravian homeworld. Its shadow fell across the planet like a dark promise. The civilians below watched in horror as their defenses melted. There was no escape from human strategy. The humans did not need to overwhelm with numbers. They needed only precision, courage, and unshakable will, and that was enough. Zelth's heart pounded. For the first time in his career, he realized that legends had been right. Humans were not just fighters. They were unstoppable forces of nature, capable of wiping out entire fleets while showing mercy where it mattered most. He straightened in his chair, his mandibles tight. "All units, stand ready. Humanity is here, and we may not survive." The human warship hovered silently, blue engines glowing, waiting. Outside, the stars watched in silence as the galaxy prepared to witness the unmatched power of humanity for the first time. On the bridge of the human warship Resolute, Captain Elena Drake stood silently, her hands resting lightly on the control panel. Her eyes scanned the Dravian fleet, taking in the chaos they had caused with calm precision. She could feel the weight of responsibility pressing on her shoulders. Every pulse of energy fired. Every maneuver executed carried the lives of her crew and the countless civilians in the Dravian colonies. One mistake, and millions could die. "Target their main weapon arrays," Elena commanded, her voice steady and firm. "Avoid civilian zones. Focus only on what is necessary." The crew responded without hesitation. Each order was carried out with seamless coordination. Laser pulses struck enemy ships exactly where intended, disabling weapons and engines while leaving the civilian sectors untouched. The humans did not strike recklessly. They struck with purpose. Precision and control defined them, and the effect was terrifyingly effective. Lieutenant Harris leaned toward Elena, his voice hushed. "Captain, they've underestimated us again. Their fleet, it's collapsing under our fire." Elena nodded slightly, but her face remained calm. "It is not about overwhelming them with numbers, Harris. It is about courage, discipline, and refusing to yield. That is the human way. Remember that." Back in the Dravian flagship, Commander Zelth watched in disbelief. His fleet was falling apart before his eyes. He could see the skill, the discipline, and the intelligence behind every human move. Ships that had once seemed like mere children in the face of an empire were now unstoppable forces. Zelth's claws tightened on the armrest. They fight differently, he whispered. They do not panic. They do not flee, they endure. Another volley of energy beams struck a Dravian cruiser. The impact was precise, surgical. The ship's weapons systems were destroyed, its engines crippled, but the crew survived. The humans were not mindless killers. They fought with heart, with strategy, with purpose. Every action seemed measured, yet utterly devastating. The calm human voice came again over the comms, clear and unwavering. Dravian forces surrender immediately. Resistance will result in complete destruction. Compliance may spare your civilians. Zelth stared at the message. It was not a threat, it was a promise. The humans were offering mercy even in the midst of annihilation, and yet their strength was undeniable. He could feel the fear spreading across his bridge, see it etched into the faces of his officers. They had fought many enemies before, but none like this. None who combined intellect, courage, and compassion so perfectly. Rill whispered, almost in awe. Sir, they're humane. Even while killing us, they care. Zelth could only nod. That was the human way. Relentless, unstoppable, yet guided by principle. Even in victory, they offered a choice. That choice, mercy even when they could destroy without effort, was something the Dravians could not comprehend. The human warship continued its slow, deliberate advance. Every Dravian counterattack was predicted and countered. Every attempt to regroup or flee was anticipated. The humans moved as if they were one mind, yet each crew member acted with individual skill and courage. Zelth had never seen such coordination, such discipline, and beneath the fear a strange feeling began to grow. Admiration. The humans were small, fragile by appearance, yet they carried the galaxy's weight in their spirit. They fought with heart, with courage, and with an unwavering refusal to yield. Prepare for final engagement, Zelth muttered, his voice low. If they wish to destroy us, and they will, and there is nothing we can do to stop them. Outside, the human warship glided through the battlefield like a shadow made of fire and steel. It did not rush. It did not hesitate. It simply was. And in that simple fact lay its terrifying perfection. The Dravian fleet faltered under the unstoppable march of humanity. And for the first time in the history of the Empire, Zelth understood what legends had whispered for centuries. Humans fought differently. Humans fought with heart, and that difference was unstoppable. The Dravian fleet gathered its remaining strength for one final push. Explosions and debris littered the void of space, turning the battlefield into a deadly graveyard of metal and fire. Commander Zelth's claws clenched tightly as he watched his ship struggle to regroup. Every move he made, every strategy he ordered seemed futile. The humans were always one step ahead. On the Resolute, Captain Elena Drake observed with calm determination. Brace yourselves, she said softly to her crew. This is what humanity does best. We do not retreat. We do not surrender. We fight with courage, intelligence, and heart. Her crew responded instantly, adjusting weapon arrays, rerouting power to shields, and targeting Dravian ships with perfect precision. Every action was coordinated, yet each human acted with individual skill and courage. Their movements were fluid like a dance of destruction, lethal but controlled. The Dravian fleet fired a concentrated salvo, their desperation evident. Massive energy beams streaked toward the Resolute, aiming to cripple the human warship before it could unleash more havoc. But the humans anticipated it. With perfect timing, the Resolute dodged each attack, its shields absorbing and deflecting what could have been fatal blows. Target their flagship's engines, Zelth ordered, his voice rising in desperation. We cannot let them destroy everything. The human ship responded with silence before releasing the pulse lance. A massive, concentrated beam of energy that tore through the Dravian flagship. The ship split in two, debris spinning in every direction. The remaining ships wavered, some losing formation entirely. Zelth's chest tightened. He could not stop what was coming. Humanity had perfected the art of war, not through numbers but through precision, courage, and strategy. He looked at his officers. Fear was etched in every face. Some trembled. Others were frozen in disbelief. None had ever faced an enemy like this. The humans did not panic. They did not hesitate. They moved with purpose and efficiency, yet their actions revealed restraint. Every strike avoided civilian zones. Every attack was necessary. There was no cruelty, only calculated power. The calm voice of Captain Elena came over the comms again. Dravian forces, this is your final warning. Surrender now and civilians may be spared. Resist, and total destruction is inevitable. Zelth felt a strange emotion rise inside him, something he had never felt before toward an enemy. Respect. The humans had brought him and his fleet to their knees, yet they offered mercy. Even in total dominance, they gave a choice. It was a concept alien to the Dravian Empire, which ruled through fear and oppression. He glanced at Lieutenant Riel. Do you see it, Riel? Do you understand what we face? Riel's eyes were wide, voice barely audible. They fight differently. They have heart. Even in battle, they care. Zelth nodded slowly. It was true. The humans were more than warriors. They were unstoppable because of their courage, intelligence, and, most importantly, their refusal to give up. Even against overwhelming odds, they fought with precision and honor. The Dravian fleet continued its desperate attacks, but each strike was countered effortlessly. The humans moved through space like shadows, untouchable and unstoppable. Every Dravian ship that fired its weapons became another example of human perfection in combat. Zelth realized something terrifying and awe-inspiring at the same time. This was not just a battle of weapons. It was a battle of spirit, strategy, and heart. The humans had proven that size, technology, or fleet numbers meant nothing if the enemy possessed courage, intelligence, and unyielding resolve. Prepare for the final strike, Zelth whispered to himself, his voice heavy with fear. If they wish to destroy us, and they will, and there is nothing we can do to stop them. Outside the viewport, the Resolute glided through space like a living force. Blue engine trails burned against the darkness, and its black hull reflected the starlight of distant suns. It did not hurry. It did not falter. It simply existed as a perfect machine of war, controlled by human hands, minds, and hearts. The Dravian fleet faltered further. Chaos reigned. And in that moment, Zelth understood what legends had always whispered. Humans fought differently. Humans fought with heart, and that difference was unstoppable. Commander Zelth's claws trembled as he surveyed the battlefield. The remnants of the Dravian fleet floated in space like broken toys, shattered and powerless. Smoke and debris drifted silently, punctuated only by distant explosions from ships too damaged to move. His empire, once proud and feared across galaxies, now lay at the mercy of a single human warship, the Resolute. Sir, what do we do? Lieutenant Riel's voice cracked with fear. His wide eyes reflected the chaos outside the viewport. Our weapons. They can't touch them. They are unstoppable. Zelth took a deep breath. He had always believed that surrender was a weakness, a choice unworthy of a commander. But now, staring at the destruction humans had wrought with precision and restraint, he realized it was no longer about pride. It was about survival. We surrender, he muttered, his voice almost a whisper. The words felt heavy on his mandibles. We surrendered to the humans. The bridge fell silent. Officers exchanged uncertain glances. For many, surrendering to humans, beings they had long underestimated, was unthinkable. But Zelth's decision was final. Their lives and the lives of countless civilians depended on it. He activated the comm channel. Human warship. We surrender. We yield our fleet and our colonies to your mercy. We beg for your restraint. The response came immediately. Calm, measured, and almost soothing. Commander Zelth, your decision is wise. Evacuate civilians. We will ensure their safety. Resistance will end only in unnecessary deaths. Zelth stared at the message. Relief and awe mingled in his chest. Humans, small, fragile beings in appearance, had the power to annihilate entire fleets, and yet they showed restraint. Even in victory, they offered life. Minutes later, human shuttles appeared, gliding among the debris, guiding Dravian ships and civilian transports to safety. Zelth watched almost in disbelief as humans worked silently but efficiently, prioritizing life even amidst the ruin they had created. On the bridge, Riel whispered, They spared them. Even when they could have destroyed everything. Zelth nodded slowly. His gaze shifted toward the shattered remnants of his flagship. He had never respected an enemy like this before. Humans were not only powerful, they were merciful. They were relentless yet just. Their strength was born of courage, intelligence, and heart, not cruelty. When a human landing craft finally arrived on the Dravian homeworld, Zelth stepped aboard. He felt a mixture of fear and awe as Captain Elena Drake greeted him. Her presence was calm, commanding, yet not threatening. She carried herself with a quiet authority that demanded respect. "You spared them," Zelth said quietly, gesturing toward the evacuees. "Even when you could have destroyed everything." Elena smiled faintly. "We fight to protect, not just to destroy. That is the human way. Strength is not measured by how many you can kill, but by how much you can save while winning." Zelth swallowed hard, realizing the weight of her words. Humanity had shown him, and his empire, that true power lay not only in weapons and fleets, but in courage, restraint, and heart. The civilians, watching from their shuttles, stared in awe at the humans guiding them to safety. They had expected death, chaos, and destruction, but instead they found order, protection, and mercy. The humans were more than conquerors. They were saviors. For the first time in his life, Zelth understood the legends were true. Humans were not just fighters. They were unstoppable forces shaped by determination, courage, and moral strength. They fought with heart, and that heart made them invincible. As he looked at Captain Elena Drake one last time before returning to his people, Zelth whispered to himself, "We will remember. Humanity is different. We underestimated them, and we survived only because they chose mercy." Outside, the stars shimmered silently. The human warship hovered in the void, its blue engines glowing like fire against the blackness. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy had seen the full measure of their strength, not just in destruction, but in honor, restraint, and heart. For the Dravians, and for every civilization that would hear this story, one truth was now undeniable. Humans were unstoppable. Months had passed since the human warship Resolute had entered Dravian space, leaving a trail of awe and fear behind it. Commander Zelth walked among the recovering civilians on his homeworld, their faces still pale from terror but alive, saved by the humans' mercy. Children clung to their parents, and families whispered quietly about the strange beings who had destroyed their fleet, yet spared their lives. Gelth felt a weight in his chest that he could not shake. He had once believed humans were weak, insignificant, and primitive, but he had seen them in action and he knew the truth now. They were small in size, fragile in appearance, yet unstoppable in spirit. They fought with courage, intelligence, and a heart that guided their every action. That combination made them far more dangerous than any weapon the galaxy had ever known. He turned toward a group of civilians boarding evacuation shuttles, guiding them with gentle authority. "You saw it, didn't you?" he murmured to Rill, who followed him. "The humans, they are not just warriors. They are something more. They fight with heart, and that makes them invincible." Rill nodded slowly, his eyes still wide with awe. "They are beyond anything I could have imagined. They fight differently, not just with weapons, but with purpose, courage, and mercy." The words felt almost sacred. Zelth could sense it. The galaxy had underestimated humans for centuries, and yet they had survived, thriving in the face of overwhelming odds. The humans' legacy would not be measured by the ships they destroyed or the battles they won. It would be measured by the respect they commanded, the fear they inspired, and the hope they gave to those who survived. News of the battle spread quickly across the stars. Alien civilizations whispered about the small blue planet that had sent forth warriors unlike any other. Scientists studied their strategies. Military leaders studied their tactics. And everywhere the same lesson was learned. Humans fought differently. They were unpredictable, relentless, and guided by a moral compass that made them both terrifying and admirable. On the Resolute, Captain Elena Drake watched reports from distant systems. She knew the galaxy would remember this day, not only for the destruction they had caused, but for the mercy they had shown. "We do not fight for glory," she said softly to her crew. "We fight because we must. And when we fight with everything humanity gives us: courage, heart, and the refusal to surrender." Her crew nodded, pride glowing in their eyes. They understood what she meant. Humans had survived for countless centuries, overcoming enemies much larger and stronger than themselves, not because of size or numbers, but because of spirit. That spirit, unyielding, fearless, and full of heart, was their greatest weapon. Zelth addressed the Dravian Council later that day. His voice, though quiet, carried a new respect. "We have faced humanity. We have seen their power, their courage, and their heart. They are unlike any enemy we have known. Fearless, intelligent, merciful, even when they could destroy without effort. We underestimated them, and we survived only because they chose restraint. That lesson we must never forget. The galaxy would not forget either." Tales of the human warship, their precision and their mercy spread from one system to another. Children would grow up learning about the small, fragile species that had fought with courage beyond imagination. Leaders would plan and adapt, knowing that humans could not be ignored or underestimated. And yet the humans themselves did not seek fame or worship. They had done what they must. They fought with heart, and they left the galaxy changed, wiser, and more cautious. That was their legacy. Not simply destruction, but a reminder that courage and morality could triumph over fear and power. As Xelth gazed at the stars that evening, he whispered to himself, "Humanity, they are more than fighters. They are the spirit of the galaxy, and their legacy will endure forever." Above him in the vast black of space, the Resolute glided silently, its blue engines a quiet promise. Humanity had arrived. They had proven that even the smallest species could shape the fate of entire empires, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Months had turned into years, but the memory of the human warship Resolute remained vivid across the galaxy. Stories of that day spread from one system to another, whispered in fear and awe. Children on distant planets drew pictures of the black triangular ship with glowing blue engines. Historians wrote accounts of the tiny species that had faced an entire empire and survived. Leaders studied humanity not just for their technology, but for the way they fought, with courage, heart, and unshakable determination. Captain Elena Drake stood on the bridge of the Resolute, gazing at the stars. The battle against the Dravian Empire had been won, but she knew humanity's work was never done. Every mission, every voyage carried the same message: humans fight differently. They fight with heart, and that difference changed everything. Lieutenant Harris approached her quietly. "Captain, the galaxy is talking about us. Some call it fear, some respect. But everyone knows one thing: we are unstoppable." Elena nodded slowly, a small smile on her face. "Not because we are the strongest, not because we have the biggest weapons, but because we do not give up. Humanity has courage, heart, and intelligence. That is what makes us unstoppable." Across the Dravian homeworld, Commander Xelth addressed his people. His voice, once full of fear and doubt, now carried admiration and respect. "We have seen what humanity is capable of," he said. "They are small in size, fragile in appearance, yet their spirit is unmatched. They fight with courage, strategy, and mercy. They are not like any enemy we have faced, and we must remember, never underestimate them again." Civilians who had witnessed the battle nodded quietly. They had been saved from certain death, spared not out of weakness but out of strength and honor. Humanity had shown them the power of restraint, of fighting with heart, and of being brave even in the face of impossible odds. The galaxy began to change. Alliances shifted. Civilizations studied humanity, trying to understand their unyielding courage. Some feared them, some admired them, but all knew the truth. When humans arrived, nothing would ever be the same. Elena walked through the corridors of the Resolute, watching her crew work with calm efficiency. Every officer, every sailor understood what it meant to be human, not just in blood but in spirit. They were resilient, brave, and guided by a moral compass that made them more than warriors. They were symbols of hope, strength, and determination. In distant systems, alien commanders prepared their fleets differently now. They built defenses, trained differently, and planned with caution. But no matter what they tried, one truth remained: humans fought with heart. That heart, more than any weapon, had toppled empires and spared lives simultaneously. Xelth visited the human fleet later, still overwhelmed by what he had witnessed. He approached Captain Elena quietly. You fought with honor. Even when you could have destroyed us all, you chose mercy. I will never forget this." Elena's expression was calm. "Strength is measured not by what you destroy, but by what you protect while you fight. Remember that, Commander." The Dravians left with a new understanding, humbled and inspired. And in every system touched by humanity, the same lesson spread. Small or fragile does not mean weak. Courage, heart, and unyielding spirit can change the fate of the galaxy. Above the stars, the Resolute glided silently. Its blue engines left trails of light, a beacon of human presence and power. Humanity had arrived not merely to survive, but to leave a mark that would endure across time and space. And in the hearts of all who had seen them, one truth was now undeniable. Humans were unstoppable. Not because of their weapons, but because of their spirit. Wherever they went, hope and fear traveled together. The galaxy had learned it the hard way, and humanity's legend was only beginning. The stars were silent witnesses to the rise of a species that would shape the future of the cosmos. Humanity had fought, endured, and triumphed. And nothing, not fleets, not empires, not fear, could ever stop them again.